Good morning, and welcome all to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, Oregon. My name is Reverend Sarah Skochko, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am thrilled to be joined this morning by my dear friend and colleague here in Chicago, Illinois, the Reverend Teresa Rolk. I'm also joined in Eugene, Oregon by a longtime worship associate, Robin Shantz Mulford, board member Susan Oldland, behind the scenes doing tech as always, Kat Johnson, pianist Amy Desert, and vocalist Izzy Kreka. It is good to be together and to worship together. Our worship theme for this month is apocalypse. And this morning, we will be considering what deep time is. That is the long, long scale of time far beyond that of our human experience, and what it means for us to situate ourselves in it and to think about it.
As Sarah said, I'm the Reverend Teresa Rolk, and I serve the congregation in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And by way of Michigan, I have found myself in Chicago, and we are very near the seminary that Sarah and I met at 5 years ago to this day.
Today,
in fact. And from here, in this space and time, I'm extending welcome to you all in Oregon, especially those at the Eugene congregation. And on behalf of that congregation, I'm welcoming our siblings in faith from the congregation in Bend. I realize there may also be others joining us across time zones, across your own corner of the world, wherever that is, and perhaps it's your first time visiting with us. For all of you, welcome, and know that it matters. It matters deeply that you are here and present. You have made an intentional choice to gather in community, and it is in that gathering that we are present for worship. So thank you. Before we move deeper into the worship service, I'm going to invite board member Susan Oldland to offer you some announcements.
Thank you, Reverend Teresa. Good morning, UUCE. I'm really happy to be here this morning. I'm board member Susan Oldland. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am your new treasurer as of July 1st. So that's exciting for me. We have some announcements this morning. Summer programming for children and youth is on hiatus until fall. Rev Jen is providing emergency pastoral care only until her official start date as our settled minister on August 1st. Please call the UUCE phone number and select option 1 to leave a message. Rev Jen has asked one thing of us as a way to prepare for her coming to be our settled minister, to enroll in the program Beloved Conversations. We ask that as many of you as possible sign up for the program. Anyone needing scholarship information or additional information can actually email me at treasurer@uueugene.org, and I will try to hook you up with the right people and perhaps some helpful funds. The link for registration for Beloved Conversations can be found in Weekly Connections and is being dropped into the chat now. And welcome to anyone visiting us today. We would love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form as you feel called. The link is being dropped into chat now. And a message from the board. Finally, we know that everyone is so ready to gather together again in person for worship. In anticipation of doing just that, although we don't know when, Rev Jen and the board will be holding listening town halls in August. We want to hear what you have to say about reopening. The town hall dates are still to be determined, but we just wanted to let you know now that they are coming up. And stay tuned, and you can find them in next month's, the dates you can find in next month's Weekly Connections. Now, let us settle into our time of worship.
In Unitarian Universalist congregations, we light a chalice when we come together to worship. I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one. If not, know that the flame that I will light includes you within its glow. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from Orlando Brugnola, who writes, "Flame, friend of our most ancient ancestors, we kindle you now to make you visible in this time. Yet in truth you burn always, in the unique worth of each person, in the imagination, in the turning of the heart to sorrow or joy, in the call to hope, and in the call to justice. Burn bright before us, burn bright within us."
Dear ones, we have set aside this hour for worship, this special time. Why do we do this every week? Our call to worship comes from Antonio Machado, who writes, "Has my heart gone to sleep? Have the beehives of my dreams stopped working? The water wheel of the mind run dry, scoops turning empty, only shadows inside? No, my heart is not asleep. It is awake, wide awake, not asleep, not dreaming. Its eyes are opened wide, watching distant signals, listening on the vast rim of silence." Dear ones, come with me. Come with me to that rim of the vast silence. Let's go together. Let us worship. We have lived another week of our wild and precious lives, each in our own sphere, but overlapping in this time. We've experienced another 7 days on this earth at the same time as one another, and yet each with our own experience. Life is as sacred in the abstract as it is complicated in the finer details of those days. And so we take time out of this sacred time to lift up our joys and sorrows, to share them with one another. I invite you now to share what's on your heart in the chat box. Let each of us be held in love. Dear ones, will you join us in prayer, meditation, or silent contemplation as we hold all of this in our loving care? Spirit of life and love, eternal mystery that binds us all, be with us now as always. Comfort us as we struggle with loneliness and illness. Be with not only us, but our loved ones, our family members, our pets, especially Tiggs the cat. Be with all those around the world struggling now. Great Spirit, help us all be vaccinated before too long, that we can be together. Protect us and hold us in love. Hold us through our fractured relationships, through our personal struggles. And Great Spirit, this morning we thank you. We thank you for being with us in our great milestones, the anniversaries of Crystal and Scott, Sally and Dave, and Frankie and Jean Marie, married 1 year ago. Great Spirit, thank you for the chance to be together and see one another, for visits with family, not having to wear a mask, getting to hug, for new life, as always, another baby added to this larger community, for recovery, blessed recovery from surgery, for barbecues and birthdays, fresh fruit and gardens, all that makes life joyous and worth living, for our dear siblings in Bend joining us. Great Spirit, we are so thankful. It is good. Amen.
You may have read in your e-bulletin about a musical composition for organ called As Slow as Possible. Someone began playing the piece 10 years ago, and the piece could come to a conclusion in the year 2650. That's 629 years from now. At this very moment in time, a single chord a combination of pitches, has been sounding since last September. The instrument, a church organ in Germany, has air moving through pipes to produce sound. Your instrument, your body has air moving through your nose and mouth and throat and lungs. Your vocal cords allow you to produce sound. For our meditation in silence today, I'd like you to first get in a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. That could be seated, it could be standing up or moving around, or even laying down. Relax into what is comfortable, feel grounded. Your eyes might be more comfortable open or closed. Just settle into that space. And imagine yourself as part of that sounding chord in Germany. And I invite you to add your voice to the chord if you want. Hum audibly, even though you won't hear each other, but hum on any pitch. You can change pitches if you want. Breathing as you need to keep a continuous sound. Or simply focus your attention on that chord that is playing right now in Germany. Become part of it. Feel how you are part of something that exists at a scale beyond our lifetimes. Breathe and hum and breathe. Return from the silence. Take the time you need. May the sound and vibration of your breath and voice remind you that you are part of the larger universe of breath and sound that has come before and will continue into the future. Amen. And may it be so.
It's our custom to tell a story on Sunday mornings. And our story today is about cats, really, but that won't become apparent just yet. In the 1980s, nuclear scientists, anthropologists, and semioticians began working on a problem. The problem of how to warn future generations not to meddle with nuclear waste storage. So far, the written record of humanity, the written record of our history, dates back only about 5,000 years. A nuclear storage waste facility would have to remain secure and undisturbed for at least 10,000 years, twice as long, and probably much longer than that. But 10,000 years in the future, people will no longer speak the same languages that they do today or use the same symbols. They might not even use written language for all we know. Even a symbol like a skull and crossbones might be confusing. Humans in the future might see that as a symbol of sacred ground, perhaps where they should dig to find cool artifacts and to learn more about our culture. They might see a skull and crossbones and think that it's really not a symbol of death, but of human life. If we drew pictures of human faces in pain or upset or scared, people in the future might think not that it's a warning, but oh my goodness, we should investigate. What famous battle is commemorated here? Something important surely must have happened. Even if we wrote direct messages and people did manage to translate them into the languages of the future, they might not believe those warnings either. Why would they? After all, there were warnings about not disturbing the ancient tombs of Egypt, and now those mummies have since gone on worldwide tours in glass cases. I'm not saying that's why the ocean is on fire right now, but I haven't ruled it out. If we make it clear that the land where nuclear waste is stored should not be farmed under any circumstances, it could be that within a couple of generations, it turns into the most farmable and desirable land on the planet, much as the forest around Chernobyl has regenerated and is now a wildlife preserve. So this is a practical problem, but one that winds up veering into philosophical territory. Many solutions have been proposed. One solution involves pouring a foot-thick layer of cement miles wide over the area so that it literally can't be farmed. Other solutions involve writing a series of messages around the site in concentric circles, with each circle translating the one that came before it, with instructions to put up a new translation as soon as the last one starts to sound funny and not make sense. Other solutions involve terrifying architecture with menacing spikes jutting out of the ground or frightening paths to nowhere that would make people in the future think, well, I need to get out of here before I get lost or injured. There is nothing good in here. But my favorite solution of all, of how to warn people in the future not to go near nuclear waste storage sites, is popularly known as the Ray Cat solution. It was developed by French author Francois Bastide and Italian semiotician Paolo Fabri. The Ray Cat solution takes into account what we can rely on. What has stayed the same for the past 10,000 years that we can expect to be the same 10,000 years from now? Well, first is our propensity to tell stories, folk stories. Given the way that libraries burn down and how not every language is even in writing, the oral tradition is arguably more reliable than the written word. Folklore from around the world is known to date back thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. As you heard last week, the story of Chicken Little, in which the sky is falling, predates the birth of Christ. Another thing that we can rely on is that wherever humans go, on every continent, including Antarctica, cats go with us. Cats domesticated themselves 12,000 years ago and have followed us around ever since. And humans love cats. There's no better way to protect our grain from rodent infestations. In some cultures, cats are venerated for their contributions. So what if scientists could alter cats' DNA without hurting them, so that whenever the cats were in an area with abnormal radiation, they changed color or began to glow? After all, plenty of animals change color or glow under certain circumstances. So in theory, it could be done. And what if? What if we spread stories throughout human cultures, teaching our children and their children the legend of the Ray Cats, that when a cat changes color, it's a warning about great danger, and you have to leave or everyone will get sick, even if we don't know why. Crucially, the legends would teach that a cat who changes color is sacred, not to be feared or left behind. When you leave, you have to take the cat with you and take very good care of it, to thank the cat for saving your life. And you must never go back to that place again. At the time, the Ray Cat solution was somewhat mocked, but we still haven't come up with a solution. We haven't come up with a good solution for long-term nuclear waste storage warnings. The problem's not solved. And so at theraycatsolution.com, you can find information about a group of people who are trying to make this happen. They're actually trying to create Ray Cats. And on YouTube, you can already find songs about Ray Cats intended to be easy to sing and memorize, to teach people in the future the legend of the color-changing cats before the cats have even been created. So many of the warnings that have been proposed have tried to find solutions to human nature, but it's a pessimistic view of human nature, that humans go around grabbing land, greedily digging for treasure, ignoring warnings, and defiling what was supposed to be sacrosanct. These solutions all bank on the certainty that humans will do wrong, that it's what we do. They all bank on the necessity of scaring people into doing better. It's kind of Calvinist when I think about it. But the Ray Cat solution, it feels kind of universalist to me. It's a gamble on human goodness. It's predicated on the idea that if we can know anything about humans 10,000 years in the future with certainty, it's that they will love their pets and that they will sit around telling stories to each other as they always have. And that is our story for today.
In 1993, Sandia National Laboratories released a report about possible ways to warn humans in the future not to intrude on nuclear waste storage facilities. The best known part of that report was a list of things that would have to be communicated, whether in words, pictures, or by other means. Here is what Sandia National Labs proposed as being important to let people in the future know. This place is a message and part of a system of messages. Pay attention to it. Sending this message was important to us. We considered ourselves to be a powerful culture. This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here. Nothing valued is here. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us. This message is a warning about danger. The danger is in a particular location. It increases towards the center. The center of danger is here, of a particular size and shape and below us. The danger is still present in your time, as it was in ours. The danger is to the body, and it can kill. The form of the danger is an emanation of energy. The danger is unleashed only if you substantially disturb this place physically. This place is best shunned and left uninhabited.
The Sandia National Laboratory warning message has become something of a cult reference on the internet. Memes are made about it. On Etsy, you can buy signs for your house in different fonts, drawn in the same style as that ubiquitous "in this house we believe" sign. Only they read instead, "in this house we believe," and then there's a beautiful cursive font that says, "This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here," and so on. My sister recently bought one for her new house. And as I was telling my partner about how funny it was, I realized that he wasn't familiar actually with the Sandia message or with the meme. So I explained the whole situation, the whole problem of storing nuclear waste and so on. And I read the whole message out loud. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us. This message is a warning about danger. The danger is still present, I read, and to my surprise, tears sprung to my eyes, and I found I couldn't get the words out. The danger is still present in your time, as it was in ours. "I'm sorry," I said. "Are you crying over a nuclear waste warning? A hypothetical nuclear waste warning?" He said. "Yes," I said. "I don't know why." Now, I'm one of those people who will tear up over a good sandwich or a bumblebee with a missing antenna. I don't need a reason to cry. I love to cry. "Is it because of the nuclear waste?" he asked. "No," I said. "I don't think so. It's just so poignant." And it was also poetic. It's a really poetic statement, strangely so. The danger is still present in your time as it was in ours. Later, I realized what that phrase reminded me of. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It sounded like a prayer. This is not actually a sermon against nuclear waste. It's about our relationship to time and the poignancy of it, the poignancy of thinking about where we are in it, something so much larger than ourselves, it's almost incomprehensible. We have limitations being mortal beings. What is it that we live to see? What is beyond that? What is beyond our knowing? For most of us, most of the time, we spend our time going about the day-to-day business of life because we have to, making breakfast, folding socks, moving from one thing to another. It's not wrong, it's for the most part necessary. But it is interesting, I think, that we have entire spiritual practices designed to change the way we perceive time, if only temporarily. We do mindfulness meditation to more fully ground ourselves in the present moment and not miss it, as well as to contemplate how small the present moment is in the vast span of time. Religions themselves grapple with long-form time, as in the Hindu concept of the 4 great yugas that repeat about every 4 million years. Why is this a religious task? Well, I think to zoom in or to zoom out on one's own view of time is to reimagine one's relationship with the infinite and possibly the divine. If you've considered how fleeting our time here on earth is in the grand scheme of things, or if you too have been overwhelmed by awe at how brief and precious human life is, you understand why this sense of time is a religious matter. Likewise, if you've been so thoroughly grounded in the here and now that you've been enlivened by an appreciation of how significant and weighty it is just to be alive, you know. But in that day-to-day routine, the place where we spend most of our time, it's hard for humans to think long-term about time. I mean, really long-term. It's hard and impractical. When I go grocery shopping, I shop for 5 to 7 days, not forever. If we stood in the produce aisle and considered only how all these bananas would return unto dust within the span of a single lunar cycle, indeed, that all of these products would turn to dust in less time than it took the dinosaurs to run their course, pretty soon we would not be allowed to go grocery shopping for ourselves. I say this because I don't want you to come away from this sermon thinking that the human scale experience is flimsy and insufficient in all of its primitive limitations to consider the big things. We don't have to consider the big things all the time. In fact, we can't get stuck there. On the human scale of perception, our dailiness is beautiful, and it is unique, and it is generative, even in its limitations and its short-sightedness. It serves us well for what we're doing here. Have you ever seen a Greenland shark? One of those lumpy, terrifying sharks that lives in the Arctic? They're pretty frightening, and they live for a very long time, hundreds and hundreds of years, just kind of floating around in the cold water, which is creepy. I suspect they also have a unique perspective on time, but I wouldn't say, wow, those Greenland sharks really need to get a clue. They have no idea how wrong those sharks are about time, floating around without purpose, wasting decades at a time, stuck next to the most boring rock in the ocean before they even realize it and it occurs to them to swim away. No, those sharks have their way of knowing, and we have ours. And it is special, and it is precious. But to think sometimes about that big scale of time, scales much bigger or even smaller than our own, we can use that at least once in a while to enhance our appreciation of the universe and our place in it, so that, as we heard in the call to worship, so that the heart does not go to sleep, so that the beehives of our dreams do not stop working, so that the water well of the mind does not run dry. In many sectors of human society, it's not done, of course. No, not by corporations. Walmart doesn't stock their swimsuit selection for a 5,000-year fashion cycle. The city bus doesn't publish their schedules either down to the nanosecond. That would not be practical. Most of our human endeavors are run on that everyday human timescale. But there are three realms of human society that are really good at imagining very long stretches of time, what's known as that deep time. And those are religion, the arts, and certain sciences, notably astronomy and geology. I like to imagine early humans making ochre handprints on the cave wall, adding their handprints to the thousands of years of handprints that were already there, and wondering, how long has all this been here? I like to think that today's geologists carry forward that very human activity in their own way. When we think about the 4.55 billion year age of this planet, If we think about it as a cake, like a layer cake, with the creation of the earth itself being down at the base of the cake on the plate, and the different epochs represented by layers in the cake, then the advent of humans could be represented by, I don't know, a single speck of dust that landed accidentally on the frosting, almost unnoticeable. Stephen Jay Gould once wrote, "Consider the Earth's history as the old measure of the English yard. The yard measured from the king's nose to the tip of his fingers. One stroke of a nail file on a single fingernail could erase all of human history. Like staring at a photograph of the Earth as the pale blue dot, it's enough to reconsider how we conduct our affairs here. We gain a sense of humility by considering it. The mathematician John Playfair said in 1788, upon looking at the geologic strata in rocks, that the mind seemed to grow giddy by looking so far into the abyss of time. When the field of geology was first emerging in the 1700s, there was considerable pushback against what it would imply about the human species. Had God not created Earth solely as a garden for our harvest and enjoyment? Today, as Unitarian Universalists, we don't believe that the Earth revolves around us, nor the rest of the universe. Rather, we understand ourselves to be part of the natural world and part of this grand scale of time. It's a perspective that lends itself towards preserving the environment, pushing back against climate change, and yes, safeguarding nuclear waste sites for the sake of those 10,000 years in the future. We don't see the Earth's resources as something for us to pillage and burn through as long as we're here and it lasts. Art, too, in addition to geology and religion, can help us enter into that stance of temporal humility, if you will. As Reverend Teresa explained, in 1987, the composer John Gage wrote that piece intended to be played by an organ called As Slow as Possible. And crucially, he did not specify how slowly that was. And so that group in Germany considered, how slow could it be played? The realistic benchmark for them was the physical life of the organ. And at that time, the organ had been invented 639 years prior. And so they planned a performance of 639 years. The next note change, by the way, will be in February 2022. One author wrote, Halberstadt, the church in Germany, itself was transformed into a structure, both of time and space, pointing simultaneously backward and forward as time manifested in both directions. As Slow as Possible is actually not the only long-form musical piece being performed right now. Jem Finner's Long Player can be heard both online, if you Google it, and at numerous physical locations around the world, having started at different times. And it's not set to wrap up for 1,000 years. When I despair in the here and now, caught in my human sense of dailiness, when I despair about the way that corporations seem to monetize every physical material on Earth, that they can do so within the span of one lifetime, I remember that somewhere on this earth, there is always a 1,000-year song playing to remind us that time will continue to exist beyond stock portfolios. I remember that corporations aren't people, and people are fantastic. I remember that somewhere in the geologic strata is a reminder to us about how brief and precious this time is, and that there are always people digging into it because they care and want to know more. I remember that somewhere still, too, are handprints on a cave wall reminding us of who was here, and that someday we, too, will be our handprints left behind. Somewhere there are people I've never met trying to engineer ray cats to warn beloved strangers in the unimaginable future to keep them safe. People we will never meet, the way that calloused hands will place date and olive saplings into the earth gently, knowing that they themselves will never pick the fruit. Our time here is precious. Our way of knowing, sacred. And so are we. Amen and blessed be.
We give thanks for this precious day, for our gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. We give thanks for this precious day, for our gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day.
Dear ones, as our time of worship comes to a close, let us truly give thanks for the gift of this precious day as it exists in this very moment. The gift of being in community with each other. Thanks for being able to share this celebration of worship together. As we prepare to leave each other's company, let us extinguish the chalices we lit earlier. In the words of Brian Keeley, the chalice is extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and the hearts and the souls of each one of us. Let us carry the flame with us and share it with those we know and with those we love, and most especially with those we have yet to meet. Amen, and may it be so. Go in peace, dear ones.